Hey guys, what I'm about to share with you is both good news and sad news. There is something that most strong players don't reveal to you. It's not every time that we play attacking moves in chess. Sometimes we simply make developing moves to coordinate and position our pieces on their most potential squares. So there are two big things to keep in mind in this case. Number one, developing moves, and number two, tactics or attacking moves. Let's just focus on these two. There is time to play tactics. Speaking of tactics, Grandmaster Susan Polgar once quoted, "Chess is 99% tactics." And that is true. In fact, that's how I win most of my games, and I believe that's how most stronger players beat lower rated players. So let's say you start with E4. The opening stage is like the first 10 moves of the game, and this is where you're supposed to be developing all your pieces, positioning them on their most potential squares before you put your king to safety. Most of the times you may delay castling if you want to, and the other point is you always want to be the first one to strike on the center of the board. For example, black plays pawn to E5. And then you go knight to F3. What are you doing with this piece? First of all, you are developing a piece that was doing nothing at its initial square. And at the same time, you are attacking your opponent's undefended piece. So this is what we mean by developing a piece with tempo. So right now, there are no tactics involved. You are just developing your pieces, positioning them very well. So black has to respond accordingly, defending his pawn. And you see what black is doing here, developing a piece in the way of defending something, which is another great example of developing with tempo. So now as white, what you want to do is to develop your bishop and your other knight, and then later on free up your dark squared bishop, then put your king to safety. And then later on you may involve your queen before connecting your rooks, bringing them on the center of the board. So you play bishop c4, a developing move once again, and black plays knight to f6, a developing move which also attacks your undefended pawn on g5. Question: are there any tactics by this stage of the game so far? The answer is no. We are just developing pieces on their most potential squares, at least where they attack something or where they defend something. Right. Now after knight to f6, say you play knight g5. Hold on. Now after knight to f6, if I was talking to a complete beginner, I would advise him or her to develop the rest of the minor pieces as highlighted, then castle short and play something like queen e2 or queen d2. But having known that most of my viewers are not complete beginners, here I would advise you guys to play something like knight g5. Now wait a second, is this a developing move or a tactical move? Think about it for a second before we move on. Right, so this is not a developing move. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a tactical move because it carries with it some tactics behind this f7 pawn. Remember, you win most of your games through tactics. So this is like the first tactical combination that we have seen on the board, threatening to take on f7. And so black should react accordingly. Now let's say black plays pawn to d5. I can say this is more of a developing move and a defensive move. So there is no much tactics involved. It's a straightforward move. And so let's say you take that pawn, and knowing that this pawn is attacking the knight on c6, black takes. Well, at this point, if you want, you can go right into the fried liver attack, which I believe you guys already know, because with this knight sacrifice, you are double attacking the queen and the rook. But hold on, this is more than a move. Is this a developing move or a tactical move? And I'm just using the word tactical sometimes in place of attacking so that I don't confuse you with a lot of terms. So I see this to be more of a tactical move in that it carries with it the idea of developing the queen to double attack the king and the knight. That's the reason why I think it's more of a tactical move, and you just have to take as black, allowing white to go queen f3 check. And then to defend this knight, black usually plays king e6. But wait a second, this is not the whole idea of this video. What I'm trying to say in this position is, from here, this game is probably going to be full of tactical shots. This game is probably going to involve a lot of tactics along the way, and so both players, especially white, should prepare for many tactical shots and surprises. So certain kinds of positions call for an attacking mind. And the thing is, the player with more tactical ideas or tactical skills, or someone who is good at solving tactics and chess puzzles, is more likely to win this tactical game. So once again, remember, the development of pieces ended somewhere back on move 3 when black played knight to f6. The move knight g5 introduced a tactical game. So if it was a strong player or an advanced player who was playing this game, right at this point, what he is communicating to his opponent is, hey, let's stop playing chess. Let me see how good you are with solving chess tactics and puzzles. That's what he is saying. Instead of the fried liver attack, another line that I would love to discuss is this one, where black plays d5 and then you take, and then after knight takes, instead of going into the fried liver attack, you also have an option to go pawn to d4, which is called the lolly attack. Now wait a second, what do you think about this pawn? Is this a developing move or a tactical move? Think about it for a second. Well, I think this is more of a developing move than a tactical move. Let me explain. First of all, white just developed a pawn which was doing nothing on its initial square. And by developing this pawn, he also developed his dark squared bishop indirectly defending the knight. And this pawn is literally attacking nothing at the moment. Not much of a stretch, because the e5 pawn is well defended by the knight, right? So this is more of a developing move if you think about it. But after e takes d4, it's not good to go into the fried liver attack because your king is exposed. You don't have an e-pawn. So in this case, if you exercise a bit of patience, you would be able to see this tactic. When something looks too good to be true, never rush to make a move. Always pause, find time to think why a certain position looks too good. So in this case, the right move is just to castle short, a developing move by the way, putting your king to safety if you still want to maintain an advantage as white. If black plays the top played move bishop e7 in this position, this is when you can now safely take on f7, sacrificing your knight, because now there is no check, your king is safe. And now this is not a developing move, it's more of a tactical move, because if black takes, now you can simply go queen f3 check, double attacking two things, the knight and the king. This time king e6 doesn't work due to rook e1 check. Remember, the e file is open, and if knight e5 is played, blocking the check and also attacking the queen, well, you can simply go bishop f4, and things are already bad here. There is literally nothing that black can do to save the game. By the way, bishop f4 was more of a developing move. How do I know this? Because it was doing nothing on c1, and this was the first time we moved this bishop, though it came with an attack. So there are no unusual tactics involved behind these, but it was just a developing move. After bishop f6, adding more support to this knight, what I would call a tactical move in this position is something like knight c3. Yes, this is the first time this piece has been developed, and we can say this move is both a developing move and a tactical move, but more of a tactical move. Why? Because it creates a direct contact on this square, and that's my main emphasis, you guys. The thing is, if black takes, looking at this position from an expert's point of view, even rook takes e5 check becomes possible, because after bishop takes, now I have rook e1 reinforcing. This knight is pinned, this bishop is pinned, and there is no any other good way of defending this position. For example, if queen f6 or queen d6, well, now this knight becomes unprotected. I can go queen takes d5 check, and after king e7, only sensible move. Now I go rook takes e5 check, say king f8. Now I see that there is no immediate way to checkmate my opponent, because all these squares are covered by black's pieces, and queen c5 doesn't just make a lot of sense. And so what I would play in this position is another tactical shot, a tactical move, bishop g5. How is this a tactical move? Because it creates a direct attack on black's queen on the enemy's piece. Tactically speaking, now I can simply checkmate black like this. Two things: developing moves and tactical shots or tactical combinations. Development and tactics. This is all for today's study, you guys. I don't want to bore you to death, feeding you more and more stuff that you will easily forget. So as you play in your games, always think about these 3 important principles that most strong players don't want you to know. Number 1, clearance sacrifice. Number 2, positional sacrifice. Number 3, interception or interference. And remember how you identify when to play tactics. It's when there's real contact or direct contact between your pieces and your enemy's pieces. That's when you begin thinking of tactical shots. Are there any tactics that I can play in this position? Do I have any clearance sacrifices to surprise my opponent? Do I have any positional sacrifice so that I can have a better position? Do I have an interception or an obstruction or sacrifice to deliberately sacrifice my piece and gain entry to another square? These are not the only principles, though there are so many of them. Look out for studies on decoys, blockades, strategic sacrifices, desperado sacrifices, etc. So at the end of the day, a person like Magnus Carlsen or Hikaru usually think of these sacrifices most of the times whenever they are playing a game. Your opening stage may be equal, but the middle game will separate great players from average players. Right, so I hope you learned 1 or 2 things. I'm also glad that I shared these things with you. For starters, just think of these 3 principles whenever you're playing the game of chess. Right, so hope to see you soon in my next video. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.